FI case number FI 2022-006. Interview is being held at 39 Hill Street at Roswell Police Department. My name is Charles Greco, Major Officer of Professional Standards. I'm currently employed by the Roswell Police Department. For the record, there is no observer present during this interview. The person being interviewed is Zac Frommer, Lieutenant, Special Investigation Section. The department is audio recording this interview. You will be entitled to a copy of this recording unless you wish to record this interview with your personal recorder. Will you be recording this interview?
No.
You're not entitled to video record interviews. Please turn off any video recording devices, including body cameras. The nature of this investigation, you are a witness in a Roswell Police Department internal affairs investigation. The nature of the investigation is, on June 22nd, 2022, at approximately 22:58 hours, Officer Charles Craig was present when officers detained the occupant of 805C Roswell Creek Lane based on intelligence that the apartment was supposed to be vacant. It is alleged that Officer Craig allowed the detention to continue after determining that the apartment in question was not on the list of vacant apartments provided by the property management. You will be provided a copy of the Roswell Police Department Employee Rights Form. I will now pause the recording as you read the form in its entirety. The time is 12:55. We are back on record. The time is 12:58. Lieutenant Frommer, you've read the form in its entirety and you understand what you've read, correct?
Yes.
Okay, in the lead-in, I described an incident that occurred. Can you tell me in your words what you know about this incident?
Sergeant Van Alstyne called me, I believe it was the next day after the incident occurred. The incident was June 22nd. He called me, I believe it was June 23rd, which is pretty normal. They work at night. I was asleep when they were working, so the next day, a lot of times he'll call me just to give me an update on anything that notable that happened the night before. And I believe it was that phone call when he told me about this incident. He just went through it, saying that he was at the Fulton County Jail on an unrelated arrest, and that some guys from the unit went to go clear some apartments related to vagrants and just abandoned apartments that were in Roswell Creek. They were going off a list, and that there was a problem with one of the apartments that ended up having somebody in it, and he went into a little bit of detail on how they started to realize it was not vacant and things like that. And we talked about some Fourth Amendment concerns, things like that. He told me that there was obviously going to be a show of force report generated because of it, and so he'd have Pete McDonald finish that up and send it to me as soon as he could. So that, I believe, was in my inbox by the 24th, the blue team was. And then that's when I first started watching the videos and looking into it. I believe it was on the 24th, or maybe 25th, I don't remember. I have to look at the calendar exactly, but soon after that is when I looked at the actual videos and, went along with what Sergeant Van Alstyne said. Sergeant Van Alstyne had already reviewed it and wrote in the blue team a pretty good timeline of events. And I saw that there was going to be an issue. If not Fourth Amendment, then I started seeing some other things that maybe related to how Detective Craig actually went back and referenced this list, and how long of a delay there was between when he saw the list and when he ended the detention of the subject that they found in the apartment. It was concerning. I was about to go on PTO, so I went to Major McCrae just to brief him on what was coming and what it was all about, just what I knew so far, and told him that when I got back from PTO, it was going to be, first thing I was going to do was look at it more closely and really watch in detail all the videos and figure out exactly what it was going to be and get it to him as soon as I could. When I came back from PTO, it was that following Thursday. That day I started watching the videos, and I saw it was worse than I had originally thought, because then I started seeing Detective Craig make a phone call that I wasn't 100% sure was an actual real phone call, trying to verify the information on the list, and just there's more of a delay than what I originally thought, even. And because of that added delay and it being, is worse than I thought, then that's when I came to you, just because Major McCrae was then on PTO, and I felt it was something that needed to be brought to OPS attention.
Okay. So upon the video review, what misconduct do you believe that you witnessed?
Well, initially, there was when they made contact at the apartment, I saw Sergeant Van Alstyne had already sort of told me about both in the phone call. I think we had one or two phone calls about it, but then also his documentation on the blue team itself. I saw that in the video where Detective Craig went along with checking this apartment, even though there were indications that there might be somebody there. So there was a grill outside, there was a chair outside, like where a smoker might hang out. Little clues like that, where still you might think, okay, it could still be vacant. There was it looked like a busted screen and a piece of plywood up, just like a vacant apartment. But those two things would be indicators. Then when Pete McDonald opens the door, you can hear him he says it in a low voice, but he says the air conditioning's on. And I think, I'd have to watch it again, but I think maybe Officer DeVell might have responded to that, and they kind of back out and say, hey, can you check the list again? Then he says there's furniture in here, so those would be indicators. So those are my initial red flags, and I was for Sergeant Alstyne, I believe, too. Then they hear the door shut, and they start calling the guy out. They get the guy out, get him in custody, and they're still back and forth a couple different times where I think after they get him in handcuffs, then I think that's when Officer DeVell says, hey, can we check this list again? Or can you double check, something to that effect? And they're checking again. So as far as I saw right there was an immediate problem of, there could be a Fourth Amendment violation. Now, they were going there for believing that the apartment was vacant, so I was like, all right, this might not be a huge deal. It could be a simple mistake, and we can work with that. But then when I see Detective Craig then go to his car and get the list and look, it just didn't. That's what started to rub me the wrong way when he was looking at the list. And you can see him on camera looking at the list, and he goes around to the driver's side of his car and is still looking at the list. It just seemed like he was looking at the list for a long time, when it seems like he should have been able to figure it out pretty quick. He comes back down. By then, another subject had come down, and someone else who lived in the apartment came down, and they were dealing with that. So the guys back at the apartment were kind of dealing with all that, trying to sort it out, getting language line on the phone. They clearly knew something wasn't right, so they're trying to figure it out before they actually went into the apartment. And I hear Detective Craig make statements about it should be vacant, things like that, when he has the list in his hand. So it's almost like he's trying to lead them to believe that maybe the list is wrong. And I'm like, on my first watch, I'm like, okay, maybe the list was wrong, but Sergeant Van Alstyne said that he looked at the list and it was pretty clear that it was no longer vacant, so that's a problem. So that's what really started sending up more red flags. When I went back again that Thursday and I was really watching it carefully, then I see this phone call that it looks like Detective Craig makes, but you can see him fiddle with his phone, do something on his phone, and then he lifts it up with his left hand, but it's still on the home screen. It doesn't look like he actually made a call. His audio is off on his body cam, so you can't tell what he's talking about, but when you watch the other cameras around, you can't really tell. I don't know if they're close enough where you would even hear him talking, but it just doesn't seem like he was on a phone call. It sort of seemed like he was queuing off what the other guys were saying with some of the questions and things, and whether he was trying to fake like he was on a phone call, I'm not sure, or just pretend, like when I say fake on a phone call, like fake the conversation, or if he was just holding the phone up nervously and then having this, trying to figure it out. But it just didn't seem right to me, and that was one where I was like, all right, that's a step even further that just I'm not comfortable with. And then when they verify, the other guys sort of figured out between the two subjects they had there that no, this apartment shouldn't be vacant, these people do live here, then Detective Craig is all of a sudden like, okay, we're done, and just wraps it up.
Alright, I'll get back to you in a minute.
Okay, I'm clear.
Okay, we're good for it, document it.
Alright, thank you so much.
Yep, we're done.
I didn't see any clear time when he spoke to this person on the phone to say that they live there. Does that make sense? Like, there was no clear ending where he was like, oh, okay, they do live here, or, something like that. It was more like, he just sort of said, okay, I'll call you back, like there's someone on the phone, and then he says, okay, we're done. And it didn't seem like he had a natural resolution to the call. It just seemed like he decided it was over. I'm like, well, why did you decide now? It didn't seem natural. The whole thing just didn't seem normal. And then when you go back and look at the timeline of each thing, it didn't really line up. So that's what the final straw, if you will, was for me when I was like, this has to be looked at closer.
Okay. As far as you know, did the crime suppression unit debrief this incident?
Yeah, Sergeant Van Alstyne told me that they did right after it, and I don't know exactly what he did, but I believe I don't know if he he showed the video or not, or just brought them in and talked to them. And I don't even know if he talked to them each individually or in small groups or in how that worked exactly. But it's common for him after a show force, use force, any kind of incident, that they get involved in, he'll go through and debrief it and see what they can do better and worse and that kind of thing. So it didn't surprise me that he did that. But yeah, I think it was that next day, maybe, he debriefed it with them.
And you were not present for that debrief?
I wasn't.
And as far as you know, did Detective Craig ever admit to Sergeant Van Alstyne or the other members of the unit that he had lied about not knowing the apartment was on the list, or whether or not he called the manager for the apartment complex?
I don't know. I don't know what he said.
Okay. Is there anything I have not asked you that you'd like to add that may be relevant to this investigation?
Nope.
That concludes our interview. The time is 13:07. My name is Charles Greco, Major, Officer of Professional Standards. It is alleged that Officer Craig allowed the detention to continue after determining that the apartment in question was not on the list of vacant apartments provided by the property manager.